to our meditation class this morning. As I mentioned last couple classes, this series of classes we're going over the Anapanasati Sutta, which is the discourse on mindfulness of breathing, which gives us 16 practices that we try to go through meditation. So last week we went over the first two exercises, and today I'll touch base on the first two again, because they are pretty important. Probably the first set, there's 4 sets. The first 4 exercises creates the first set, which is probably one of the most important ones to practice or to be able to fully understand for the meditation practice, because it does focus mostly on the breath and then the body as you're breathing. So today we'll go over those. Each class, I just want to recite the 16 practices. I think it would be helpful for us to start getting to know each one whenever we have meditation retreats. This sutra is the sutra we chant in the morning before we start our retreats. And it's the only chanting we do for the day, but it's also the main focus, at least mostly, the main focus of our whole meditation retreat practices. So I hope to conduct another retreat soon. I know the apocalypse of the deleted year 2020 kind of threw everything off, but I'm hoping now that things are getting back to normal, right? Vaccines open to everyone now. I think it's open already. That it will kind of just start normalizing our lives again. So I hope that probably, I want to say end of May, perhaps, or beginning of May. No, not May. May is like already next month, right? I'm hoping after Vesak. Vesak is one of our biggest Buddhist holidays, and I think this year is pretty late. It's actually the end of May. It's usually the beginning of May, but it's according to the lunar calendar. So Vesak is one of our biggest holidays, so it'll probably be after that. So it'll probably be sometime in June. So hopefully it's not too hot by then. I mean, it'll be hot, but it's not going to be like August hot, so I think it'll be okay. Plus, we'll be mostly inside now. And now we have a bigger area to actually do walking meditation inside, so if it does get way too hot in the afternoon, we actually at least have the space to do it inside, so I think that'll be helpful. So that's TBD. I know I've already been asked a couple times about retreats this year, so hopefully we can start getting things together. Anyway. On that note, I also want to mention, before I forget, that next Saturday is our day of mindfulness, working day, volunteer day. So if anybody is able to join us, please do at 8 a.m. next Saturday. We'll go on until about 3 or so. Typically, you don't have to work the whole time, and everyone is able to leave whenever they need to, but if you are able to join us even just for an hour or two or the whole day, that'd be great. We are doing project landscaping, so we are finally being able to actually do some garden work here. Mostly I want to focus on leveling out some of the dirty area in front of the shrine to start putting down concrete tiles to make a pathway. So that'll be our main focus, and then of course just tidying up some of the garden that's around here and doing some planting. So if anybody has a green thumb, because I do not, I kill all the green stuff, which is why everything here is fake, because I can't keep them alive. So if anybody has a green thumb, please feel free to join us and feel free to bring people, because we will be doing lots of raking and moving some dirt, so we definitely need the people power. Okay. Again, that's next Saturday at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and recite the 16 practices again. That way, I want to help ingrain those in your mind, so that way when you're not meditating or even here at the temple, maybe you can bring up some of these practices when you're out and about, because that's really what these practices are meant to do, is to help you become more mindful and more aware of your body, of your breathing, and how your body and breathing changes according to the circumstances and situations that you're in. And then once you're able to notice that change in your body when you're breathing, then that can give you like that aha moment, like, hey, what's going on right now that's causing my breathing to change? Why am I feeling so heated, right? Why is my body temperature changing? Why is my breathing faster or slower, right? And so when we're able to become aware of those changes, that means something's going on. It could be a very subtle thought, right? It could be something that someone passed you and it reminds you of someone. You're not really thinking about it, but it's kind of there in your subconscious. And then your body starts kind of getting maybe irritated, maybe it's starting to heat up a little bit because you're angry, or your breathing changes, right? And so when we're able to become very aware and very mindful of those very subtle changes, then that will give us the aha moment of, hey, what's going on right now in my mind, right? It may not be a full-blown thought, but it's something there that caused a change in your breathing or in your body to change. And so that should give you a moment of realization of, hey, there's something going on. Let me focus on that. Let me contemplate what's really going on here, right? That way, when you are able to meditate on it and become aware and mindful of what's going on and or why you start feeling certain feelings or ways, right? And you can get to the core reason, right? I always tell you to do the why meditation. Always question yourself. Always question why you feel a certain way about something or someone, right? To get to the core reason. So when you get to that core reason, like, oh, okay, now I can either weed it out of my life, right? Maybe eradicate it completely, or do something about it. That way, when the next time you interact with that person or be at that place, it doesn't bring up those negative emotions or feelings anymore, right? So it's really the purpose of Anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing practices, is to help you become aware of those very subtle changes in your body and breathing. Okay. I won't number the practices, so I'm just going to go ahead and read them. Breathing in a long breath, I know I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a long breath, I know I am breathing out a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, I know I am breathing in a short breath. Breathing out a short breath, I know I am breathing out a short breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing in, I calm my whole body. Breathing out, I calm my whole body. Breathing in, I feel joyful. Breathing out, I feel joyful. Breathing in, I feel happy. Breathing out, I feel happy. Breathing in, I'm aware of my mental formations. Breathing out, I'm aware of my mental formations. Breathing in, I calm my mental formations. Breathing out, I calm my mental formations. Breathing in, I'm aware of my mind. Breathing out, I'm aware of my mind. Breathing in, I make my mind happy. Breathing out, I make my mind happy. Breathing in, I concentrate my mind. Breathing out, I concentrate my mind. Breathing in, I liberate my mind. Breathing out, I liberate my mind. Breathing in, I observe the impermanent nature of all dharmas. Breathing out, I observe the impermanent nature of all dharmas. Breathing in, I observe the disappearance of desire. Breathing out, I observe the disappearance of desire. Breathing in, I observe cessation. Breathing out, I observe cessation. Breathing in, I observe letting go. Breathing out, I observe letting go. And then in the sutra, the Buddha tells us that the full awareness of breathing, if developed and practiced continuously according to these instructions, will be rewarding and of great benefits. And it will be rewarding and of great benefits. Because as we just discussed, right, these practices and being able to breathe mindfully and with awareness will really help you outside of meditation, right? One of the main reasons that we meditate, other than developing a strong concentration within our meditation, right, a strong focus on our object of meditation, it also helps us really get to know ourselves, get to know our mind, right? Because let's say you're out and about, right? Let's say you're at the grocery store, and someone behind you runs right into you with their shopping cart, right? Our immediate reaction to most people is to turn around and to start yelling at them and saying, hey, watch where you're going, can't you see me? Right? They start retaliating, like, hey, you hit me, you hurt my feelings, I'm better than you, right? We have this mentality that I'm better than you, you clearly can see me, why you touch me, why are you hitting me, why are you in my way, right? We start kind of getting defensive in a way. But we become defensive because we are only looking at things from our own point of view, our own mindset, our own ego, and the way we look at the world, right? Most people, the way they look at the world revolves around them. I need to become rich and famous. I need to have the big house. I need to have the fancy car. I need to have the latest technology. I, right? It's always me. It's always I. It's always what I can get, what I can have, what I can succeed and get from the world, right? Screw everyone else. I deserve it more than anybody in my vicinity, in my family, in my workplace, right? So we unfortunately have that mentality, maybe not all the time, but at least in parts of our life, right? Especially when we are just starting to develop our career, right? We're trying to move up quickly up the chain, or maybe when we're, when we start a new job, we tend to be extra focused and extra hardworking because we're trying to impress our boss and our colleagues. So we have this mentality that we need to be number one at everything that we do, right? But at the same time, being number one or trying to be number one at everything we do ignores a lot of things that are not beneficial or not helpful, right? Sometimes when we try to become number one, we maybe intentionally or unintentionally hurt other people on the way, right? Maybe we throw someone under the bus, or maybe we use someone else's failure as an example to amplify our own success, right? Maybe we are telling someone who we're competing with, hey, the meeting's at 12, when really the meeting's at 9, right? You're intentionally screwing other people over to get ahead in the game. And what this does is this starts creating these really bad habits in our minds, right? It starts creating these really bad ideas and a bad personality, where now, even outside the workplace or outside of whatever you're doing, now you are developing those bad habits to become part of your everyday life, right? So now you take it home. So now you're screwing over your own family, maybe, right? Or your friends, or you're trying to get away or cheat someone or cheat your way out of something, right? So you're taking it outside of the workplace into your everyday life. So these bad habits are growing and growing, and eventually you become like probably a very terrible person, right? So, and because sometimes these little bad habits develop on a small scale and they kind of amplify over time, we may not be able to see that change within ourselves, right? And even maybe for some other people who live with us, maybe our own family and friends, we may not be able to see the change if you're doing it, very slowly over time. So let's say you've developed these bad habits, and now, your coworkers don't like you. They ignore you, they intentionally walk the other direction when they see you walking down the hall, they don't invite you out, whatever it may be, right? Same thing with your family and friends, because now you've taken that mentality out of the work and you've taken it to your personal life. So now your own family and friends don't invite you places, they don't want to see you, they don't want to interact with you. So now you're like, well, what the heck? Like, I'm a good person, I'm successful, I have a big house, a nice car, right? Now you're questioning why nobody wants to be with you. So when we sit in meditation, another important aspect of meditating is to get to know yourself, to get to know your mind, to get to know what triggers you throughout your life, right? So if you're meditating on why nobody likes you, then you meditate on why don't they like you, right? You go back to the why meditation. Why doesn't my family like me? Well, maybe because I brag too much about my successful career. Why are you bragging so much about your successful career? Because I've worked hard to get to it. Why did you work hard to get to it, right? You keep asking yourself why to get to those reasons. And as you start peeling away these superficial reasons, you start getting to the core reason of, I screwed over a coworker, or I threw them under the bus, or I blamed them and took their failure and made it my success, right? You get to these little reasons of why now nobody likes you. That's, of course, an exaggerated example, but it could be any other subtle things in your life, right? Maybe it could just be why you don't get along with your neighbor, or why you don't like your neighbor, right? Or why you don't like your coworker, or whatever it may be, right? You can meditate on anything that brings up a negative thought process or another negative pattern of thinking. And so as you start meditating and you try to develop these instructions of why you feel a certain way, or why you don't like a certain person, or a certain whatever it may be, right? You get to know yourself, right? And you start hopefully seeing a pattern of thinking that will drop this nice picture for you to say, these are some of the reasons why I'm thinking this way, or these are some of the reasons why I feel like I'm right and they're wrong, or whatever it may be, right? So we want to watch our thinking in a way, right? Like last time I said, it's a little bit difficult to watch our thinking without being involved in our thinking, right? Because we do want to watch our thinking, but what sometimes happens, especially if we're untrained, that once we start thinking of something, we will either realize, hey, I'm thinking, let me go back to my meditation, or you start becoming involved with the thought, right? You start entertaining it, you're now part of that thought. So we either drop it or we be a part of it. But we need to be somewhere in the middle, where we are not dropping it and we're not being a part of it, we're just watching the thinking happen, right? We're kind of almost like having an out-of-body experience, and we're watching how our thinking process works. And then as we do that over time, we can hopefully see a pattern, right? We start analyzing our own thought process, and we can see some of the patterns and some of the triggers that may trigger or cause us to think a certain way, right? And so once we see a pattern here, we're like, oh, this person specifically brings up these types of emotions, or this place specifically brings up these types of emotions, or thinking about this, or thinking about that, or thinking about whatever brings up these sort of feelings and thoughts, right? And so when we are able to create that trend of what triggers us, then we have something to focus on, right? If it's something that's actually tangible in our life, where we can go and be like, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a bad friend, right? We all have good friends and we have bad friends. They're bad influences in our lives, right? So maybe it's that bad friend that's a bad influence in our life that we have to either start spending less time with, or just completely cutting them out of our life, right? Maybe it's just our job. A lot of people have good paying jobs, but they absolutely hate it. And they hate the people they work with and hate the environment, right? And so they think it's not their job because it's a good job. They enjoy the work and they're getting paid a good amount of money. But because that's their main focus, they're seeing the subtle things that cause the negativity, which is the bad coworkers, the bad management, the bad environment, right? So they're using the positives of it to cover up the negative, right? They're kind of just brushing it underneath the carpet and kind of hoping it'll go away. But clearly it's not going away, because now that's what's bringing up these triggers of you not wanting to get out of bed to go to work, right? You're just never excited to go into the office. You're not excited to interact with your coworkers. You hope that they never invite you anywhere, right? You loathe every time you see an email from your boss, right? So when we meditate on these kind of things and we try and we start figuring out these trends and the things that cause us to think badly or feel badly, then we can try to work directly with those objects and kind of weed them out or let them loose or something, right? Just to kind of get them away. That was way off topic as usual. Has nothing to do with breathing. but breathing. So the first two exercises, right? It's breathing in a long breath. I know I'm breathing in a long breath. Breathing in a short breath. I know I'm breathing in a short breath. And so last week I mentioned that even though these are called exercises, these are not instructions to tell you breathe in a long breath and breathe out of a long breath, or breathe in a short breath and breathe out a short breath, right? We're not telling you to breathe in long or breathe in short. These really are not exercises in a way of you having to do them. They're more like mindful observations, right? So it's really telling you, if your breathing is long, be mindful that your breathing is long. If your breathing is short, be mindful that your breathing is short. If your breathing is heavy, be mindful your breathing is heavy. If it's rapid, be mindful if it's rapid, etc., right? As your breathing changes, as your breathing goes up and down, be mindful of that change. That's what the exercises are telling you to do, right? And I mentioned last time that, if we're just normal, right? Let's say we are breathing normally now and we go out to our car and all of a sudden someone drives into the parking lot and backs into your car. What happens now? Now you're angry because someone, whole parking lot, and they chose your car to back into, right? So now you're angry. So now your body starts heating up, right? Your muscles tense up. Your breathing is heavier because now you're mentally preparing yourself what to say as soon as they get out of their car. So now there's changes in your body. There's changes in your breathing. Your breathing's heavier. Your body's getting a little bit warmer because now it's all heated up. You're tensed up. You're ready to fight. You're ready to prepare your Karen words, right? with these people. So things are changing, right? So the exercises, as we go down the list, it's saying, hey, if your body is changing, if your breathing is changing, be mindful of it, right? So now if you're a good practitioner and you go out and someone hits your car and now your body is changing and your breathing is changing, a good practitioner is aware of that, right? A good practitioner would say, hey, my breathing is heavier now. Why is my breathing heavier? Why is my body tensing up, right? It could obviously be obvious because someone hit your car, so it's the obvious answer. But if it's something that's not obvious, right? Maybe you go out and there's like a dent in your car, right? You don't know what the obvious thing that happened, right? It could have been a car. It could have been an animal. There's lots of deer around here, right? It could be something that we're not aware of. So we're angry, but we don't know what we're angry about necessarily. So we use the practices of mindful breathing to be aware of the changes in our body, to be aware of the changes in our breathing. So that way, when something very subtly happens like that, we can be mindful of our breath and be like, okay, my breath is changing, right? I'm breathing in heavier, or my body is tensing up, right? Or I feel heated. That way, when you're mindful of that, you know there's a change somewhere in our mental state, right? And so now you need to ask yourself, what is going on in my mental state? Why is there a change, right? So that way, that way when you ask yourself, why is my breathing changing? Then you can be mindful of, I'm angry because now there's a dent in my car, right? So if we're able to catch that awareness of anger before it becomes this full-blown experience, then that's going to help you in the long run, right? Because what happens with anger especially, right? Anger always happens first as a thought, right? Like you see something, right? Let's say you saw the actual accident of someone hitting your car, right? Seeing it firsthand, that's your first opportunity to catch yourself from becoming angry, right? Because accidents happen, that's why it's called an accident, right? So that's your first opportunity to stop yourself from being angry. But if it doesn't, then it goes into your mind, right? And so then your mind creates these thoughts of negativity and of anger, like, that person hit my car, that person ruined my car, now my car is ruined, my car is totaled, my car has a dent in it, right? That's your next opportunity to stop yourself from becoming very heated and angry. If you're not able to stop yourself there, then what happens next is it becomes speech, right? So now you're yelling at this person, now you're cussing them out, and now you're cursing their whole family and their life for the next 5 centuries, right? You've hexed them, you've put a curse on them. And then it goes into action, right? So that's your next opportunity. Before it becomes an action, you have an opportunity there as you're yelling to be mindful and say, I need to stop yelling. I need to bring it back. I need to focus. And I need to really contemplate the whole situation here. So if you're unable to stop yourself at that point, and now it goes into action, so now you're grabbing something out of your car, maybe a bat, maybe some other weapon, maybe you're beating on their car, maybe you're beating on that person, right? So you have all these different opportunities to stop yourself from becoming very angry and very heated, right? Because now you're this terrible person who's beating up this person or beating up their car and yelling out these slanderous words, right? So now you essentially are not a good person, right? You're a typical Karen, or whatever you want to call it, right? You're a typical bad person. You're a typical crazy person that people see on the internet and have all these videos of. So we don't want to become that typical person, right? So when we meditate, and as we develop our practice, and as we develop this true mindfulness practice, right? We have all these different opportunities to catch ourselves from becoming angry, from becoming jealous, from becoming heated or irritated or whatever it may be, right? Whatever feeling or mental formation it causes. We have all these different opportunities to catch ourselves from lashing out at the end, right? So when we're meditating and we're let's say we're practicing meditation, loving kindness meditation, right? It's one of the techniques that we learned last year. That you are developing a true loving kindness mentality and wish for happiness and compassion towards people, right? And we start with ourselves first, right? And then we move on to loved ones, to family and friends. We move on to strangers or acquaintances. And then we move on to people that we don't necessarily like or have a good relationship with, right? And it's usually at that point where people are like, I don't want to wish them wellness. I don't want to wish them happiness. I don't want to wish them good health, right? Because we don't like them necessarily, so we don't want to wish goodness on them, right? So it's during that stage or that opportunity where it's like, but why though, right? You can ask yourself, you want to question yourself, why do I like this person, right? And there could be a legitimate reason, but ultimately, that legitimate reason probably happened a very long time ago, right? It can happen last year, a decade ago, before you were even born, right? It's not even something that happened to you. It could be something that's inherent or inherited from the family, right? Something that's going to happen 3 generations ago because this one family stole our property or something. Now, for the rest of everyone's generation, that family, we don't like that family because 300 years ago, they cheated us out of 1 acre of our land or something. I don't know, right? So now there's this inherited anger and dislike towards this family that just carries on through the generations, right? And I can say that because that's happened in my own family, right? So for generations, we've hated this one part of our family because they cheated some land out of our family at one point in their life. So now, as the kids have their own kids, it's like part of their inheritance is to automatically hate that family. Sometimes we don't know why, right? There's no legitimate reason. We were told to hate them, so we hate them, right? So we want to avoid that, obviously, but mindfulness meditation does help us get to know ourselves and get to know our thinking, get to know our habits, our good habits and our bad habits. And so that way when we are aware of those bad habits, we're able to acknowledge them, really figure out why they're there, how they got there, and see if we can eliminate them, and then of course weed them out, eradicate them from our mindset. That way, as you do that, right, it's obviously not easy, right? Let's say you just automatically don't like a certain coworker for no apparent reason, right? A lot of us have this very strong hold on first impressions, right? And during the first impression, if they did something wrong or said something wrong or something that we didn't like, whatever, that first impression creates this whole world around this person that forever and ever we will never see them any way differently other than that one impression, from that one first impression, right? So they can be the best of people, they can be the nicest of people, they can be the hardest of employees, right? They can be liked by the world, but for some unbeknownst reason, you just don't like them because of whatever first impression they gave you, right? So now that every time that person is brought up in conversation, or you see them out in public, or you see them at work, or you have to interact with them at work, you just have this automatic dislike, like your whole body just cringes up, right? And you just don't want to, you just don't want to interact with them, you don't want to associate with them. And so you can use that as your meditation object, right? And really figure out what happened. Why do you feel, what did they actually do in their first impression that caused you to dislike them so much, right? And as you work through it, and as you see that a lot of things that happen in life is impermanent anyway, right? What they did could have been a mistake. What they did could have just been your own ego, right? First impressions, the whole realm of first impression is really very ego-based, right? Because if you think people should be a certain way, or act a certain way, or look a certain way, or think a certain way, right? Especially in a workplace, if they don't meet to those standards, then you automatically think they're wrong, according to your own thought process, right? But your own thought process could be wrong. This is your own ego, because your ego is telling you this person should be doing this way, or thinking this way, or acting this way, or saying these things, right? If it goes against what you believe is right or wrong, then you automatically think that they're wrong, right? They're not on your level, so you cancel them out. But this is very ego-based, because you could be wrong too. You can think you need to be 1,000% professional at work, right? You need to be at work 10 minutes early every day. You need to leave work 10 minutes late every day, right? You have these standards of work life that if other people don't meet them, then they're not as good as you are, right? So we need to get out of that kind of bad habit thinking, because that's bad habit thinking. That's very ego-based, right? And that's one of the main reasons of when we are feeling negative towards certain people, right, is because of that ego base, because they did something that's against what we believe is true, right? Even if you're wrong, right? When we know a lot of these people, we know a lot of people that they know that they're wrong, but they're so have a strong hold on their opinion that even though they know they're wrong, they still think they're right, right? You can throw all the evidence and shove all the evidence down their throat to correct them, but they're still going to think that their way is the right way, right? Even though they're actually wrong. But we also have those same habits where we think we're absolutely right when we're really wrong, right? And so through meditation and through really getting to know our own selves and our own minds, we can hopefully try to break through those bad habits and really correct ourselves in a way, right? Because everything that we perceive in the world is really our own perception, right? You may think this temple's pretty and beautiful, but somebody else can come and be like, this temple's too much. It's over-exaggerated. It's too big, or it's too small, or whatever it may be, right? So we're all going to have different opinions. Somebody's right or wrong. But when we're so held strongly to those opinions, then our whole perception of life is going to be skewed in a way. So we need to break through those things and see that this isn't beautiful or ugly, it just is, right? That way you don't really have, you don't have an idea of it. Your idea is that it's just there. This person's not good or bad, they're just a person. This accident isn't deadly or fatal or non-fatal, it's just an accident, right? So as you break through the titles and the perceptions you give to things and people, the better you're able to see the world as it truly is. And that's really the ultimate reason, that's the ultimate goal through all these practices, is to, like the 16th practice is, I observe letting go. Breathing in, I observe letting go. You're letting go of all these opinions, all these perceptions that we hold on to, right? So things are not big or small, ugly or beautiful. Things just is. They just are. And that's how we need to perceive the world. Because if we go out and look at things as beautiful or as ugly or as big or small or whatever it may be, then we have biases, we have opinions that will cause us to lose sight of other things, right? If we're so hell-bent on saying, like one tree is the most beautiful tree in the world, right? Like one of the little trees out here, like this is the most beautiful tree I've ever seen in my life. Like there's no other tree that could ever be as beautiful as this tree. But in reality, there's a million other trees that are prettier, that don't throw pollen in your face and cause you to give you like dying allergies, right? But that's what we do sometimes, is that we are so strong on saying this is the best thing. I know better than everybody else, right? I believe this is the most right, the most correct way, whatever it may be, right? But we need to get out of that habit so that we can really see other views and other perceptions in life to help us really see the big picture. Otherwise, we're going to be so narrow-minded that we're going to miss all the nice things that are passing by. That makes sense. Okay. So what I wanted to focus today for our meditation specifically today, and the reason I wanted to stick with the breathing parts is part of the breathing, part of the practices of these practices is to find a strong point within our breathing, within our meditation that we can focus on, right? So we use breathing because breathing it's natural, it's there. You're going to breathe whether you want to or not, right? Unless you force yourself. But breathing is the most obvious thing that we can be aware of in our body, right? We can feel our breathing, right? We can hear our breathing. Sometimes we can see our breathing if it's cold enough. So breathing, meditating on our breathing is very important, and there's lots of different ways to do it. But part of the breathing meditation practices is to also find a strong point that will then at the end become our main object of meditation, our main focus in meditation. And when we're able to fully focus on that one point, our concentration becomes stronger, right? The whole goal at the end of this is to develop a very strong concentration in your meditation. Because only then, when you have a very strong concentration, that are able to really develop true wisdom. We're able to really contemplate on things and find the trueness in that teaching or whatever it is you're contemplating on. So specifically today, and this is one of the practices that we taught last year in one of the meditation and breathing sessions. So today, we'll focus on trying to find our strongest breathing point, or the strongest point where you can really feel the most calm and concentrated. So one of the breathing exercises that we taught last year was the feeling of air as we breathe, right? So today, and I think before we concentrated on 5 spots in our body, but today we'll just do 3, the 3 main ones. So the first one is, as you're breathing in and breathing out, focus on the air coming in and out of your nose. Feel the air as it enters your nostrils, right? Be mindful of the air itself. Is the air cold? Is it warm? Right? Do you feel it mostly in your nostrils? Do you feel it mostly on the upper lip? Right? You want to feel the actual air going in and out of your nose. And then after breathing a few times and being aware of that breath or that air, then you move on to feeling the air as it goes down your neck, right? As it goes into your lungs, right? So feel the air. Again, is the air cold? Is it warm? Right? Just be able to try to visualize the air just going in and out, right? Feel the lightness of it, the heaviness of it. And after a few breaths of that, then you want to move back down to your chest. So as your lungs expand and contract, feel the air go in and go out, right? How much air is going in, how much air is going out? Is it comfortable? Is it heavy? Is it too shallow? Is it too short? Et cetera, right? So as you breathe that for a few times, then you go back up and you go back down, right? So you breathe maybe 3 to 5 breaths, concentrating your nose, 3 to 5 breaths as it goes up and down your neck, 3 to 5 as it goes into your chest, and then move backward, go up and down. And we do that maybe for the first 10 or so minutes of our meditation. After that, try to find which area was most prominent. Which of the 3 locations were you able to really concentrate the most? Which 3 places were you able to really feel the air the strongest, right? Where were you able to really feel that air energy most in your body? And then that becomes your main focus. So once you do find that place where it's strongest, whether it's the nose, the neck, or the chest, then that becomes your main point of meditation. That's your main area of meditation, because that's where you feel the strongest and most concentrated, so you focus on that one area, right? Yes. I'm sorry, say again? Yes, the main area means the place your focus there. So if you feel it most prominent in your chest, then you focus on the breathing in your chest. Does that make sense? So once we are able to find the strongest point, right, that becomes our focus. So just focus if it's the chest, right? If you feel it most in your lungs, then meditate on the air going in and out of your lungs, right? That's where it's most focused. If after a while you're like, no, this is not working anymore, go back to the 3 points to re-find the strongest point, right? It may be the chest again. You just have to re-verify to your mind and body that, no, it's the chest, right? Because remember, our mind is a jokester. Our mind's a trickster. Our mind focuses only on the past and in the future. It doesn't want to stay in the present, right? So when we meditate, our mind's like, oh, no. Let's start thinking about that accident that happened yesterday and how angry we are at that person. Or let's think about work next week and all the things we have to do, right? And so now starts causing you anxiety, right? So we need to be strong enough to be like, no. We're not angry. We're not anxious. We need to be right here in the moment. We need to be present. And so we need to come back to whatever focus in our body that gives us that concentration. And then later on, as we go through these exercises, so our next class will be on the 3rd and 4th exercise, which is focus in our body. I didn't want to touch base on that today because really our breathing needs to be very light and natural before our body becomes light and natural, right? Because if we're not aware of our breathing, if we're breathing too heavy, if we're breathing too light, right? You can even breathe too light. But if you're breathing too heavy, if we're breathing sporadic and all over the place and it's not natural and concentrated, then our body has no room to just relax, right? Because it's supporting our breathing. It's supporting the different ways that we're breathing. So our body's like, I can't be relaxed if I'm having to support you breathing and staying alive, right? So we really have to focus on our breathing a lot and make sure that it is natural and smooth and light, right? And we do that by being aware of it. So if we're aware that our breathing is changing, then we can go back to our breathing, being mindful of our breathing and bring it back to normalization. That way, once our breathing is relaxed, then our body has an opportunity to be relaxed too, and then we can actually sit comfortably in meditation. So that's why I wanted to refocus again on breathing, so that way, hopefully, as we find this strong point in our body where our breathing is most prominent, or we feel our breathing is most prominent, that way that becomes our meditation focus, and once that becomes a focus, that will relax your mind and your breathing. That way, next time when we focus on our body, we already know how to relax our mind and our breathing, and we can go into actually relaxing our body. So we will sit for 20 minutes today, since I didn't talk as long as I thought I did, which is very surprising. So we'll sit for 20, and we'll focus on trying to find that strong point to focus on, and then we can discuss it. Cool. Any other questions? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? Okay. mind always starts in my chest. And then as I get more concentrated and my breath starts slowing down, I can barely feel any air moving. It's like I'm not breathing anymore, so I have to move it to like my nostrils and my nose. So mine always shifts up and down. That's probably what will typically happen, especially if you use your chest or lungs to concentrate on. As you start meditating and you become more calm and your breath starts becoming more shallow, it'll feel like as if you're not even breathing at all because it's so short and shallow. You would have to move your concentration somewhere else. Or if your concentration is super focused, then you wouldn't need any other object to focus on, which is the end result, right? Because eventually you want to meditate without having to have an object to meditate on, because you're super concentrated and you become a meditation master at that point. Cool. Anyway, well, any outtakes, questions, concerns, opinions, experiences? Yeah, the breath will become very shallow, which is a good thing actually. You want to get to a point where it feels like you're not breathing. That's actually a good sign. Because it means that you're concentrating enough where you're not being fully distracted. Because what can happen is if you are concentrated and your breathing is pretty calm and shallow and slow, that if you become distracted and you start entertaining that distraction and that thought, you start like moving around with it, right? That thought could either cause you to become angry or super excited or whatever it is, and then that will actually change your breathing, right? Your breathing will become longer or heavier, so it'll change, get you out of that focused area. So getting to a point where your breathing is pretty shallow and short and feels like you're not breathing is actually a good sign. But people may come to the thought that, oh my God, I'm dying. I need to take a big whole gulp of air and this like huge sigh. But we actually want to avoid that. We actually want to avoid sighing or taking in that deep breath when we feel like we're not breathing, because that'll actually cut that concentration. And then you'll have to pretty much start over again. So if you got to the very shallow, I feel like I'm not breathing point, that's actually a good place to be. It's a good thing as long as you don't fall asleep. Because that's another thing can happen. Because that's how we breathe when we're sleeping. Like when we're actually in deep sleep, we breathe very slowly, very shallowly. We breathe very shallow. And so that's the same state of sleeping that we're in. So it can cause us to fall asleep, but that's why we use objects of meditation to focus on, so you don't fall asleep. So even though you're breathing very shallow and slowly, as long as you have an object of meditation to focus on, that will keep you concentrated enough to stay awake, assuming you stick to it and don't drift off to somewhere else. So that's why, along with being aware of our breathing, we can use counting or any other object of meditation to use. So especially for me, like in the morning, in the early morning when we get up to meditate for 90 minutes, it can get pretty tough sometimes, especially if I like slept late or just didn't have a good night's sleep. I'll tend to fall asleep a couple times. So other than just focusing on the breathing, you can add some other supplemental technique in there, like counting or visualization or saying a mantra to help keep that concentration and focus. mantra? Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, mantra, I use mantra pretty often, especially in during evening, or evening chanting and meditation, because we chant the Amitabha Sutra in the evening. So usually when I'm meditating, I'm saying Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha as my mantra to help me focus and stay awake. But mantra meditation is very effective, I think. It's very helpful, especially if your meditation practice is not very regular or often, that if you do need those extra steps or those extra tools to use, I think using mantra is probably one of the most effective, in my experience at least. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I'm sorry? Yes, so next Saturday, the 17th, is our day of mindful working. So it's our work day 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We will have lunch as usual, we'll have pizza. And then we will be outside mostly, so please do bring sunscreen and bug spray. And wear it often. We do not. The cats keep snakes away, thankfully, because snakes are like my worst. I would now live here if there were snakes on property. Trust me, there's no snakes. At least I've only ever seen 2 snakes here since I've been coming to and been at the temple for like 10 years. I've only ever seen 2 snakes. So there are no snakes. So thankfully, that's why we keep the cats around. They keep them away. I'm sorry? Yes, we have gloves. You can bring your own if you have your favorite gloves. We'll be mostly out of the grassy area, so I'm sorry? Long socks, yeah, and bug spray. I always use bug spray here. Whenever I'm doing garden work, I always have to wear bug spray. Well, I've never had any of those here, thankfully. Knock on wood. Yeah, we'll be mostly out of the grassy area anyway, away from most bugs and stuff. Because we'll be right here in the front where all the dirt is, and just leveling that out and compacting it, so we can lay down the concrete tiles. But depending on how many people show up, I'm hoping it's a nice amount, because every once in a while we'll either get a lot of people or not enough people. So people, great friends of mine, I expect everyone to show up because I need the mat power, the people power. Yeah, so hopefully if we have enough people, I'll be able to spread people out like I try to. But we'll be mostly working in the front here, so we'll be away from any potential grassy bugs or anything like that. But I still recommend wearing long socks and then bug spray. Okay. So that's next Saturday, and the Saturday after that is our next meditation class, I believe. I really need to write down these dates because I'm very bad at keeping dates. Most days I don't know what day it is. I only wake up according to what my alarm tells me. So if I wake up, I know it's a working day. If I don't wake up, then it's not a working day. Okay. All right, so I'll see everyone hopefully next Saturday, and then I'll see everyone else for our next meditation class. Thank you. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.